looking a bit towards the future, generative AI obviously is transforming how software developers work, how data scientists work.
Yeah.
What do you think are the kinds of the new skills and knowledge bases that developers, data scientists need to stay relevant in this generative AI world?
Yeah, that's interesting because I hear a lot of people that are complement themselves with language models, and I do as well in maybe not small doses. It depends on what I do. Um, Honestly, I don't think we've cracked the recipe for working alongside AI for coding yet. There are a few very notable examples, but at the same time, for the more mundane task, it's great. Also for complicated things, it can be great. Um, but you need to find your dimension as you need to use it as a wall to bounce ideas back and forth. That's where I get the most out of it. Like it helps me when I have an idea, even a methodological idea, even with some maybe math theory behind it. Whereas I would look for papers on Google sometimes. That process of getting in the vicinity of where you want to be is very facilitated by a language model, a powerful one, if you know how to bounce ideas back and forth. And and I think that is the skill you need to develop. Um, Also, I think as sometimes I develop on the back end and so on, and I see a lot of things that could be so much easier. Is if only I could delegate it to someone else, and that someone else can be a language model because those tasks are extremely predictable and repetitive. Um, and yes, you can use libraries that abstract things away, but then what happens when something goes wrong? You have many layers to peel off, and maybe it's just easier to keep things simple from a library perspective and have AI like filling the gap between you and your willingness to spend time at that level and the task you need to accomplish. Um, I do think that in the future you will just write a function or call a function, and that function doesn't exist until you call it, and or it will be cached in many ways. But for sure, you will have to weave everything from the top to the bottom. There would be some layers that may be delegated. Again, in that realm of repetitiveness and so on. I don't think we're at the point where we can say that software development will be rendered useless. I think it's more like we're nearing the point where personal automation will be it's closer. And then what software development will become when you have personal automation, then it will evolve naturally. Of course, if you want to be in your comfort zone of being a super expert at a language and know the ins and outs, that's great. It's probably not the way things will evolve in the future. Um, Although there will still be a need for that, but just in a smaller number. Uh, but something I already brought up, I think in another mm, some other time in another video. When I first interacted with ChatGPT, it reminded me that something crystallized in front of my old person mind, which is HyperCard.
Hypercar.
Yeah, HyperCard. Do you remember HyperCard?
No. Hypercard. No.
Yeah. So HyperCard is something that coincidentally was created by a person under the influence of hallucinogenic substance, but it was
Okay.
actually a product by Apple that shipped with macOS Classic. I don't know if it was a software on top of it or shipped with it. I can't remember, but it was an attempt to bring automation and programming and building systems to people that were not programmers. Um, it had a hyperscript, which was a scripting language that resembled English from a syntax perspective. The problem with that is that it's not the syntax. The problem is that if you need to write a for loop and your mind need to be crafted in such a way that you understand what a for loop does and you keep track of variables and blah, blah, blah. So yes, you can write it with a semicolon or reservoir or in English, but it doesn't matter in the end, right? So it was trying to solve that problem from an angle of syntax and accessibility, but it didn't really solve the problem throughout, which is how can I express what I want in natural language? So, of course, technology didn't allow to express what I want in natural language because that was relegated to science fiction movies, and now we're there. But the whole purpose of that thing was, can I allow someone who doesn't have a background in computer science to write their own thing, to have their own thing materialize in front of them because they need to solve a very specific problem and they want to solve it in a way that fits them, their immediate need. And so I think we're at the point where the technology is ready to get there, and I think that what makes me the most excited, right? The ability to bring automation and the ability to express algorithms with an intention rather than with the with having to walk the little robot every step of the way, right? And so I think, that I think is the what the future of development might be. So in a way, it will get more accessible so that I can just express what I want. And it's also already partially true, but it's just very partially true, right? With agents and so on. And then there will be another set of people that will just dive deep into whatever, and use language models to empower them to think faster and to get the results faster. And that's inevitable.
Nice. Yeah. So basically, to kind of summarize back to you what you're describing is that with generative AI, we already today we have some of these kinds of personal automations where you can be delegating some software development or data science tasks, and over time that will become more reliable, more expansive. But for the foreseeable future, at least, the role of software developer, the role of data scientist won't disappear. It's just that there will be more and more automations that you can spin up easily. So it provides more accessibility. It means that you don't necessarily need to be expert in all of the different programming languages that you are developing in, say. And so maybe the kinds of skills that become more important in that kind of an environment are the kinds of collaborative skills with the team to understand what the product needs, what the business needs, creativity to be coming up with solutions that will really move the needle for some product or organization. And simultaneously, principles around, architecture and having systems work well. So it moves you up the stack where you don't need to be worried so much about the low level coding as a software developer or data scientist. You're thinking at a higher level, and maybe sitting a little bit closer to product.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that. Although it lasts like blocky, right? In the sense that you need to be low level to understand exactly what you want from a system. So we're not at the level where an automated system will be able to figure out the architecture or something for you, but it will help you iterate much faster at getting that architecture out the door. And I don't think there are any system that right now that is ready to just replace the whole like full stack. You still need to be full stack, but it's actually easier to be full stack right now because some of the things you just had to know in order to have an acceptable speed, you don't need to know them all to have an acceptable speed, right?